Alright, so what is up guys? In the last video we went over how to create an object that will format our date for us, and we also set up a nav controller in our main activity. And in this video we will go ahead and set an on-click listener in our list fragment and actually create the screen that creates the habit for us. So to do this, the first thing we're going to do is go to our fragments folder and click on our habits list folder, and then finally we can click on habits list. And there's a lot to be done in here, but just for now, we're just going to add a on-click listener for our floating action button. So we're just going to type in fab_add, and then we're going to set an on-click listener in here. Then we're going to type in find nav controller, and we're going to navigate to our create habit fragment. So r.id action habit list to create habit item. And that will take care of our navigation from our habit list to our create habit fragment. And that's all we have to do in here. Next, we can go and close this package and open our create habit package and open the class that we will create our habit item in. And the first thing I want to do in here is extend a few classes. So the first one I want to extend is the time picker dialog. And we want to override an on time set listener. And then we also want to extend a date picker dialog and call on date set listener as well. Then you'll get the error on the class, so you can right click on it, or you can also just alt enter and implement the members it wants us to implement. So as you can see there, we have on time set and on date set, and we will click OK for both. And let's get started with the variables. So now we're going to type in private var title, and that's going to be an empty string for now. Then we're going to do the same thing for three other values. So private var description, which will also be an empty string. Then private var drawable selected, which will just equal 0. And a private var timestamp, which is also going to be an empty string. Then we are going to create some variables for our day, month, year, hour, and minute. So we will type in private var day, which will equal 0. And since everything is going to equal 0 initially, we're just going to copy and paste that line 4 more times. And now we can change each one accordingly. So month, year, hour, and minute. Then we need to create 2 more private variables. One's going to be for the clean date, which is going to equal an empty string, and a private variable, which is going to be called clean time, which is also an empty string. And then finally, we just have to create a late init var, which is going to be our habit view model. And it's going to be of type habit view model. And those will be all the variables we will create for this class over here. And immediately under on view created, we can actually get started with instantiating our habit view model. So let's get rid of this super call. And let's make some space. And inside here, we will type in habit view model, which is going to be equal to view model provider. And the owner is going to be this activity .get. And then we need to pass in our habit view model class.java. Then we want to create a button. And this will be the button confirm. And we will set an on-click listener for that. And inside here, we will add a function that will update our database with the current information selected from our create habit screen. So we'll type in add habit to DB, which will just be add habit to our database. And it's absolutely fine that this is red because we have not created it yet. And then right under this button, we want to add 2 more functions that we will take care of very soon. So we'll type in pick date and time. And then we also want to create a function called drawable selected, but this will be drawable selected as a function, not this part right over here. So what you should have right now are 3 red functions that we have not yet added the code for. So now we can go down below and actually start adding the code. And the first one I want to take care of, because I find it the most tedious, is the drawable selected. So we will type in private function drawable selected. And this is going to be a bunch of on-click listeners. So the first one we have to add is the IV fast food selected, and then we need to set an on-click listener. And then we're going to check if our image view fast food is selected. Then we want to change it to it not being selected. So we'll just type in image view fast food selected is selected. So this is some very clean syntax to change the button from being selected to being not selected. And another thing we have to do is set the drawable. So we're going to type in drawable selected is going to equal the r.drawable.ic fast food. And that will just tell the program which drawable to add to our habit item. And also just to clarify before we move on, as you may have noticed, there's also the image view fast food selected update, and you must disregard this because this will be used for our update habit fragment. So for now, just make sure you have the original image view for the fast food selected image view. And one more thing we want to make sure is if the fast food item is selected, we want to make sure that the other two are not selected because we want the user only to be able to pick one. So we'll set that to false, and we will pick also the one for T selected is selected to equal false as well. And as you may have guessed it, we have to do this for the next two icons as well. So we're going to type in IV_smoking selected dot set on click listener. And then inside here, we need to write IV_smoking selected is selected. And we're going to equal that to the opposite of whatever we select. So IV_smoking selected is selected with the exclamation mark in front. And for this one, we need to set the drawable selected to r.drawable, and this is going to be the smoking icon. And then we need to deselect the other two. So we'll get IV_T selected is selected, and that's going to equal false. And then IV_fast food selected, and that's going to equal false. And then finally, we need to do it for the T icon as well. So IV T selected set on click listener, and inside here IV T selected is going to be equal to the opposite when we click on it. So we'll just type in exclamation mark IV T selected is selected. Then we will set the drawable selected to r.drawable.ict. And just as for the other two, we need to deselect the other two. So IV smoking selected is selected will equal false. IV fast food selected is selected will equal false as well. And that's all we have to do with our drawable selected function. It's just going to help us pick an icon for our database and to display in the card view when we add a habit. But now let's just collapse this function so we have some more room to see what we're doing. And the next thing we want to do is set up our calendar. And right before that, we want to get some calendar instances. And this will help the user pick the current date and time because it will default it to the most current date and time. So for the first one, we're going to type in private function get time calendar. And inside here, we're going to get an instance of the calendar. So we're going to write calendar.get instance, and right below we want to type in hour and then calendar.get calendar and the hour of the day. Then we're going to do the same thing for the minute. We'll type in minute equals calendar.get and calendar.minute. So this function will return the most recent hour and minute when the user clicks on pick time. And we need to do the same thing for the date. So we will write private function get date calendar. We're going to create another instance of this calendar. And inside here, we are going to assign some values to our day, month, and year. So day is going to equal calendar.get calendar day of the month. Then for the month, we're going to write month equals calendar.get, and it's going to be calendar.month. And you should be very careful when you're getting this month because the indexing starts at 0. So January will be 0 and December will be 11. And I find that very annoying, but that's the way things are. So just be sure to handle that appropriately if you decide to use calendar.month in the near future. And we already took care of that in our calculations object, so that is fine. And then we just want to receive the year, which will be calendar.get and calendar.year. And that will take care of getting the most recent date for our calendar pickers. Next, we can go to our overridden methods, the ones that say on time set and on date set, and we can handle those accordingly. So inside here, we are going to get rid of the to do, and we're just going to type in clean time is going to equal calculations.clean time. And inside we should insert first the hour of the day and then the minutes. And then we have to go ahead and type in TV_time selected.text. And that's going to equal the time, which is going to be our clean time. And then we're going to move on to our on date set. And as you can see here, it's quite confusing because they use position 1, position 2, and position 3 instead of year, month, and day. And the way I found this out was just by logging it. So you're more than welcome to add a log there. But I'm just going to change these values so I know exactly what they are because I already went through this. So I called the first one year X, then I called it month X, and finally day X, just so we wouldn't confuse these with these variables up here. And there's actually one thing I want to do real quick because up there we have a variable called minutes and I don't really want to confuse it with this minute over here. So we're just going to change this to minute X. And this X will just help us to understand that these are local variables that were provided by the on time set and on the on date set. And inside we're going to assign a new value to our clean date, which is going to equal calculations.cleanDate, and the first value it's going to take is day X, followed by month X, followed by the year X. Then we need to change our text view of date selected dot text to the current date that we have selected. And that will take care of the functionality for our calendars. Of course, we still need to add an on-click listener for them, so let's go ahead and do that. So right below drawable selected, we can go ahead and add a new function called private function pick date and time, which we have included already in our onCreate. And inside here, we are going to type in button underscore pick date dot set on click listener. And the first thing we need to do is get an instance of our calendar, the date one. So we're going to type in get date calendar, and that will get us the current date. And then we are going to create a date picker dialog. And inside here, we need to pass in a context, and we'll just pass in required context with a listener, which will refer to this. And then we need to pass in a year, a month, and a day, and then call dot show. And then we need to do the same thing for our time picker. So we're going to do button underscore pick time dot set on click listener. And inside here, we need to get the time calendar. And right before we move on with this, I just realized I made a big mistake. So we need to go back to our Gradle scripts, click on build.gradle, go down all the way to date picker and get rid of this date picker, because it is not necessary for the project, and I just realized that just now. And now when we return to our create habit item fragment, what we have to do is remove this material date and time picker, and we need to import the one that's already included with Android. And as you may see, we will get another error in our create habit item. So we'll just implement that member, which says on time set, and click on OK, and it will add it to the bottom. And it's a very trivial mistake. So all we have to do is copy and paste what we had from our other on time sets and just paste it inside here, and then remove that one. And for clean time, the hour is going to be at position 1, and the minute is going to be at position 2. Anyways, we just fixed that, so now we can go back to our pick date and time function, and right below our get time calendar method, we are going to type in time pick a dialog, and inside here we need to provide a context, and the listener is going to refer to this. Then all we have to do is pass in an hour and a minute. Set that it is of 24-hour format, and we're going to call .show. So that's going to take care of opening our date and time picker dialog, and we can just test it out. So let's just turn this into a comment so we don't get a compilation error. All right, so as you can see, when we start the app, we have an empty screen, but when we click on the plus, it navigates us to our create habit fragment. And now when we pick a date, you'll see it will give us the most current date, and today is Friday, the 4th of September. We can just click on OK, and it will set the date right there in the text view. And then we can also do the same thing for the time. And as you can see up there, it is 13:09. We can click on OK, and it will set the time in there. So everything is working perfectly, and we can move on to the final bit of code for this fragment, which is what to do when we insert all the information and how to add it to the database. So that is the final function for this fragment, and let's get right into it. Get rid of this comment first, and then right above drawable selected, we can create this function. So we're going to type in private function add habit to database and create a block. And the first thing we want to do inside this block is get the title, which is going to be our edit text underscore habit title dot text to string. And that will just retrieve whatever title we insert. Then we want to do the same thing for the description. So we'll type in description equals et underscore habit description dot text to string. And then we will create a timestamp, which is just going to be a string of our clean date and time. So timestamp, that will equal clean date and clean time. And it's very important that this timestamp corresponds to the same date format that you've inserted in your timestamp to string, because that will be used later to decode that date string and turn it back into a timestamp so we can do calculations. So just make sure this is in the same format as that. Then we need to provide a check that makes sure that none of the given fields are empty, so we can successfully add everything to the database without the application crashing. And to do this, we'll type in if title is not empty, or if the description is not empty, or the timestamp is not empty, and finally, or the drawable selected is not equal to 0. Then we can go ahead and safely insert these fields into the database. And to do this, we will first create a habit. So we'll type in value habit. It's going to be a habit. And then we need to insert, first we need to import it. Then we need to insert the ID of 0. It will automatically be generated from there on out. So even if you insert 0, it will continue incrementing it by 1. So your next ID will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will take care of everything for us. So it doesn't matter if you insert 0, it will automatically change that for us. And add the title the description, the timestamp, and the drawable that we have selected. And then we will create a toast with the context as the context, and the text will say habit created successfully. And of course, before the toast, we should call our habit view model and add the habit that we have successfully checked for the fields not being empty and add it to our database. And if all of that happened successfully, we want to find our nav controller and navigate back to our habit list screen. So we'll type in r.id.actionHabit, action_create habit item to habit list. And of course, if this doesn't work, we want to add a toast that the user did something wrong, and we will just write in the context and say, please fill all the fields. And that's actually all we have to do in our create habit item fragment. And now let's actually just test that everything's working by clicking on run. So let's click on the plus symbol and let's click on confirm. And as you can see, it won't let us do anything because we need to fill all of the fields before moving on. And also let's test that the drawables work. And as you can see, the selector works perfectly. So let's just select a cup of tea and let's say quit coffee. Yes. And let's pick a date, which will be this very date at this very hour, and click on confirm. And then it will say habit created successfully. And at the moment, there's nothing to be shown on the list because we have not yet created the list adapter. But we will do that in the next video, so just be patient for one more episode because in the next video you'll finally be able to see all of the hard work that you've been doing throughout these last 4 episodes. And yeah, it's going to be good. But with that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. See you.